Foods to generate yang energy in the body. Yin and yang are two opposing and yet mutually complementary energies in the body that interact to maintain a balance that is very fundamental to good health. At times, the body needs to be active. At others, it needs to be inactive. Yang energy is responsible for being active, while yin energy is responsible for being inactive. I recall a taxi driver complaining that he found himself falling asleep while driving his cab, which is very dangerous indeed. When people feel sleepy too frequently, it is because they have accumulated excessive amounts of yin energy, and it is necessary for them to introduce more yang foods in their diet to counteract the strength of their yin energy. An intake of yin foods can make you inactive. An intake of yang foods can make you active. In addition, when one consumes yin foods, they have a tendency to stay in the body to serve as yin fluids, whereas when one consumes yang foods, the foods have a tendency to leave the body. For example, when you eat sweet potatoes, their fiber and residue will be excreted from the body, but the yin fluids that they generate will stay in the body to lubricate the joints and the cavities. On the other hand, when you eat ginger, which is a yang food, not only are fiber and residue excreted from the body, but ginger will cause perspiration and its energy will be eliminated along with it. Therefore, yin foods increase input of energy while yang foods increase output of energy, and both are necessary in the process of metabolism. Metabolism involves two fundamental processes: an input process to assimilate and build up energy, which is called anabolism, and an output process to promote excretion of energy, which is called catabolism. Thus, it is inaccurate to say unequivocally that the more you eat, the more you will gain weight, because putting on weight also depends to a large extent on whether you eat yin or yang foods. Nowadays, we often hear that in order to stay slim, we need more exercise. There is a great deal of truth to this statement because exercise is active, which is yang. This means that exercise will shift your body towards the yang side, which is another way of saying that exercise increases yang energy in the body to speed up the output process of metabolism. In Western medicine, there is something called basal metabolism, which refers to energy expenditure when the body is at a complete rest. An intake of yang foods will increase the basal metabolic rate even more effectively than exercise, because you're getting rid of that extra energy while you are at rest. This is why some people eat a lot but still remain slim or even underweight, that is, if they are not suffering from diabetes or hyperthyroidism and the like. A retired man was complaining about his inability to calm down. He couldn't rest during the day, nor could he sleep at night, but worst of all, he couldn't even sit down for very long and had to keep moving around or even jogging, which was a serious problem. This man had become much too active as a result of accumulating great amounts of yang energy. Thus, it was necessary for him to reduce his intake of yang foods and increase his intake of yin foods to reverse the overactive tendency of his body. Any foods that can increase the active state of the body are yang foods. Many of the foods we eat every day are yang foods, such as black and white pepper, chives, ginger, garlic, chili pepper, and soybean oil. Even tobacco and alcohol are considered yang foods. Consumption of alcohol often contributes to gaining weight, which may be attributed to the fact that alcohol increases a person's appetite so that more foods are consumed, whether yin or yang. Many smokers gain considerable weight very quickly after they quit smoking, which is another indication that yang foods can increase energy output in the metabolic process. Since tobacco and alcohol may have other harmful effects, they are not recommended for consumption, even though there may be a deficiency of yang energy in the body. Fresh ginger. Fresh ginger is a typical yang food because it can stimulate many activities in the body. For example, it can speed blood circulation and secretion of stomach fluids, stimulate the intestinal tract, and promote digestion. It can also increase blood pressure. It is reported that by chewing 1 gram of fresh ginger without swallowing it, systolic blood pressure rises as much as 11.2 millimeters of mercury and diastolic blood pressure as much as 14 millimeters of mercury, with no apparent change in pulse rate. Fresh ginger extract has been found to stimulate the vasomotor and respiratory centers in the heart in laboratory cats. In fact, one type of hypertension is attributed to an excessive amount of yang energy in the liver and should be treated by an intake of yang energy to strike a balance. This, however, does not mean that all types of hypertension should be treated by yin foods because hypertension has many different causes. Here are a couple of fresh ginger recipes that may be helpful to use. The recipe that follows is a remedy to induce perspiration, which is good for both the common cold and its prevention, particularly when fever and chills are present. You grate 30 grams of fresh ginger, boil it in water, add 1 teaspoon of brown sugar, and drink. The next recipe is for suppressing coughing due to the common cold. Grate 50 grams of fresh ginger mixed with 2 teaspoons of maltose. Boil in 3 cups of water until the water is reduced to half a cup, and then sip slowly. Fresh ginger is a very popular condiment in China and is mostly used to improve the flavor and remove the bad odors of meat and fish. For example, in cooking vegetables, you can add a few small slices of fresh ginger to make a more delicious dish. In cooking fish, you can add a few slices of fresh ginger not only to improve the flavor, but also to eliminate the fishy smell. From the standpoint of Chinese medicine, the most important use of fresh ginger in cooking is to increase the yang energy of foods. In other words, by adding slices of fresh ginger in cooking, yin foods will become less yin and more yang, while yang foods will increase in yang energy. Garlic. Traditionally, garlic as a yang food has been used to promote energy circulation, warm the stomach, and remove any accumulated toxic substances. This is consistent with the modern discovery of garlic being capable of killing germs, promoting digestion, and improving appetite. But garlic has been found to have many more therapeutic functions in recent years, such as being used as a remedy for hypertension, hepatitis, and cancer. Garlic has been in popular use in Japan for a long time, and a recent Japanese study has revealed that garlic contains a mineral called Ge that is reportedly capable of preventing stomach cancer. A team of doctors at the Hunan Medical College in China, who call themselves a research group of garlic as anti-cancerous agent, have used a patented medicine made of garlic to treat 21 cases of nasopharyngeal carcinoma, cancer of the nose and throat, with significant results in most cases. In addition, the same group of physicians has also found garlic to be effective for pulmonary tuberculosis, whooping cough, bacillary and amoebic dysentery, enteritis, inflammation of the intestine, oxyureasis, pinworms, ankylostomiasis, hookworm disease, prevention of flu and epidemic encephalitis, inflammation of the brain, and external application for the treatment of trichomonas vaginitis. There are a number of garlic recipes that may prove helpful to treat bacillary dysentery and enteritis. Boil 2 garlic cloves in water and consume as 1 dosage before meals 3 times daily for 2 to 3 days. To treat the early stages of the common cold, take 50 grams each of garlic, the whiteheads of green onion, and fresh ginger, and boil in water. Then drink hot and cover yourself with a blanket so that you perspire. To treat whooping cough, immerse 60 grams of garlic in cold water for 5 to 6 hours. Remove from the water, add some white sugar to the water, and drink 1 tablespoonful 3 times daily for a few days. To treat trichomonas vaginitis, immerse a gauze in garlic juice until thoroughly wet and then squeeze the gauze inside the vagina. Change this gauze 1 to 2 times daily and use this course of treatment for 3 to 5 days. It is reportedly effective in over 95% of trichomonas cases. To treat oxyureasis, crush 9 to 15 grams of garlic cloves and mix with petroleum jelly for external application to the anus and surrounding region. To get rid of germs in the mouth and to prevent the common cold and infections of the mouth and intestines, eat a few garlic cloves every day. There are side effects of garlic, however, and for that reason, it should be used with care. Garlic can make red blood cells become dark brown by contact and can also dissolve red blood cells when applied in high concentration. In addition, the volatile oil containing garlic can inhibit the secretion of gastric juices and can also cause anemia. It is well known that garlic can cause bad blood, which can be reduced or eliminated by gargling with strong tea, eating some red dates, or drinking a few cups of tea. Walnuts. As a yang food, walnuts are traditionally used to boost sexual capacity in men, because when their sexual organs have sufficient yang energy, they will cool down and erection becomes difficult to achieve. For the purpose of improving sexual capacity in men, take 60 grams of crushed walnuts as a one-day dosage for 1 to 2 months, or as an alternate treatment, fry a walnut with 6 grams of chive seeds and then boil the 2 ingredients in water. Eat the walnut and chive seeds and drink the soup once daily for 3 days. Unlike fresh ginger and garlic, both of which are purely yang foods, walnuts are basically a yang food but also have a yin nature as well. Because of their yin nature, they can lubricate the intestine. That is why walnuts are traditionally used to treat constipation. As a food remedy to induce bowel movements, crush 60 grams of walnuts and 30 grams of sesame seeds into a powder and take 1 teaspoonful of this powder with warm water once a day, the first thing in the morning. Another method of treating chronic constipation, particularly in older or weaker people, is to chew 10 to 30 grams of walnuts slowly like chewing gum twice a day in the morning and the evening. Vegetables and fruits for vitamins, minerals, and fiber. Grains, meats, and fish supply the body with carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, but vegetables are the primary source of vitamins, minerals, and fiber. There are many diseases associated with vitamin deficiencies, and vegetables can help us avoid these diseases. In recent years, it has been discovered that certain vitamins are anti-cancerous agents. One of them is vitamin C, which can be found in chili pepper, Chinese cabbage, kale, kohlrabi, and parsley. 100 grams of fresh chili pepper reportedly contain as much as 105 milligrams of vitamin C. Carotene and vitamin A have also been found to be anti-cancerous agents, and they may be found in many vegetables such as carrots, parsley, pumpkins, spinach, and squash. Vegetables and fruit are also primary sources of fiber, which have been found to be essential in promoting intestinal peristalsis, in aiding digestion, in inducing regular bowel movements, and in reducing the quantities of coproporphyrin, a porphyrin present in feces with quantities altered in different diseases, as well as useful in preventing cancer of the colon. In his article, Research on Longevity, published in Japan in 1977, Dr. H.Y. Toda pointed out that as the Japanese economy continues to make headway, the Japanese people have had an excessive intake of animal foods at the expense of grains and vegetables. This has resulted in increased acidity and decreased alkalinity of the blood, leading to blood acidification, which accounts for the increased incidence of obesity, cancer, arteriosclerosis, heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, cerebral hemorrhage, coronary disease, arthritis, and gout. In general, animal foods, fish and eggs are acidic foods that produce acid after they have been digested, whereas fruits and vegetables are alkaline foods. Most fruits and vegetables can neutralize the effect of an excessive intake of acidic foods. Longevity and conventional Chinese wisdom. Science versus common experience. Western nutrition as a science can be traced back to the father of chemistry, Antoine Laurent Lavoisier, 1743 to 1794. A French chemist who maintained that life is basically a chemical process. In point of fact, it is more accurate to say that life is an experience that may be enhanced through an understanding of the chemical processes involved. Throughout history, some people have managed to stay in good health and lived a long life, whereas others have suffered poor health and lived a short life. Through an understanding of life's chemical processes, it is possible to both promote and extend good health. For example, by 1870, about one-third of the children in London and Manchester were suffering from rickets. Subsequently, scientists discovered that the disease was caused by vitamin D deficiency, so that people began to consume vitamin D to cure rickets. But science was only confirming what many people had discovered through common experience, that certain foods containing what is now called vitamin D cured rickets. While science was not developed until a few centuries ago, common knowledge has continued to expand and outstrip science in many areas. But much of this valid common experience in human health is often dismissed or ignored by modern scientists. Since scientists know so little about common nutritional lore and are inclined to dismiss what they do not understand, they are not the best guides in the search for foods that extend longevity. Modern medical scientists have a universally skeptical attitude towards common experience. Their thinking being that nothing is true until proven scientifically. A typical scientist would tell you, for example, that 100 grams of raw celery contains 17 calories, 0.9 grams of protein, 3.9 grams of carbohydrates, 39 milligrams of calcium, and 9 milligrams of ascorbic acid. But he will shrug off the suggestion that celery can lower blood pressure because he hasn't seen any research to that effect. In fact, celery has been proven effective for reducing blood pressure among the Chinese for many centuries and has become the conventional Chinese wisdom. Again, a typical scientist would tell you that 100 grams of dried fish contains 274 calories, 4.3 grams of protein, 1.3 grams of fat, 69 grams of carbohydrates, 126 milligrams of calcium, 640 milligrams of potassium, and 80 IU of vitamin A. But he would shrug off the suggestion that figs can cure dysentery and hemorrhoids. In fact, the effects of figs have been verified in the common experiences of the Chinese for centuries and have become part of the conventional Chinese wisdom. Each culture has accumulated its own conventional wisdom, sometimes despite scientific denials. Scientists, of course, do make new discoveries based on the common experiences of people, but unfortunately sometimes they lag behind in the current understanding of human health. As long as people live, they struggle to find new ways of combating diseases and improving health. In the 3rd century, the Chinese people were eating liver, which contains vitamin A as we know it today, to cure night blindness. But scientists did not discover vitamin A until the early 20th century. If those suffering with night blindness in the 3rd century had chosen to wait for scientists to discover a cure, they would have been doomed to night blindness throughout their lives. In the 3rd century, the Chinese people were eating seaweed, which contains plenty of iodine to cure simple goiter. But scientists did not discover iodine as a cure for goiter until the last 18th century. If those people with goiter in the 3rd century had waited for scientists to invent a remedy, they would have suffered needlessly. It may be possible for scientists to discover sooner or later a cure for every single disease and to eventually discover all the nutrients that will enable us to live forever. But it could take a very long time. There are 3 stages of truths regarding health, as well as in other fields of knowledge, which should be fully understood and distinguished from one another. First, something is true but nobody knows about it yet. Second, something is true and some people know about it through experience. And third, something is true that has been verified by scientists. That tea prevents scurvy is true today as it was true from time immemorial. Even though nobody knew about it, this is truth at the first stage. When the truths have been discovered in human experience, they are truths at the second stage. In the middle of the 18th century, many seamen on board Western ships had become critically ill or even died from a disease now known as scurvy. But the same ordeal was a rare phenomenon among Chinese seamen because they were drinking tea. That tea was beneficial to the health of seamen was discovered by the Chinese people through their common experience, which represents the truth at the second stage. When vitamin C was successfully isolated by Dr. Albert Saint-Georges in 1937 as a prevention of scurvy, it became truth at the 3rd stage. There could be no doubt that there are far more truths at the 1st stage than at the 2nd stage, and there are equally far more truths at the 2nd stage than at the 3rd stage. Conventional wisdom of Chinese physicians as a guide to longevity. A physician of traditional Chinese medicine lives in the world of experience, in the true sense of the word, to engage in the art of healing. To be sure, there is a great deal of abstract knowledge that a physician of traditional Chinese medicine must learn. There are also established clinical procedures he must become acquainted with, but once learned, he must strike out on his own and his clinical practice. Not unlike a captain steering a vessel in a seaway, he knows that his abstract knowledge and standard procedures are useful to him only to the extent that they enable him to treat his patients successfully. His theoretical knowledge has to be tested in real life. Unlike a physician of Western medicine who routinely applies the laboratory findings in his clinical practice as if laboratory animals and his patients were identical to one another, a physician of traditional Chinese medicine will try hard to establish his own experience of clinical practice. All good physicians of traditional Chinese medicine in the past have accumulated at least a few hundred successful clinical cases in their lifetime, and towards the end of their careers, some of them wrote a few medical classics of their own to report on their successful experience in clinical practice. Undoubtedly, such physicians have something to offer us in the selection of foods for longevity, if for no other reason that the many of them had achieved unparalleled longevity themselves. In the 19th century, a Chinese physician named Ding Pu Lu observed, "Most outstanding Chinese physicians in the past have enjoyed longevity." This observation is supported by historical facts because many outstanding physicians in Chinese history had indeed managed to live a longer life than the average Chinese person. An outstanding Chinese physician named Meng Xin, who lived 621 to 713, had lived 92 years and was remembered in particular by the Chinese people for his remark, "A person who really knows how to nourish the body should always keep good foods and herbs handy." Another notable physician named Sun Shu Mao, who lived 581 through 682, had lived 101 years and once said anyone over 40 years old should try to avoid laxatives, which will weaken his body, and begin to take tonics. Anyone over 50 years old should take tonics all year round. Such are the secrets of nourishing life to enjoy longevity. A Chinese physician at the Jinzhou Chinese Medical College by the name of Luo Ming Shan, who had lived 113 years. In a book entitled Outstanding Chinese Physicians in the Past and Their Medical Theories, written by the staff of the Peking College of Chinese Medicine, published in 1964, a total of 37 of the most outstanding Chinese physicians in history, dating back as far as 8581, are listed with their medical theories. Most of them had lived a much longer life than the average Chinese person. The average lifespan of these physicians was 80.56 years. According to a survey conducted by the United Nations in 1977, the average lifespan of people in the world was 59 years, with people in industrialized nations averaging 70 years and in developing nations 40 years. This means that the lifespan of outstanding Chinese physicians in the past was at least 36.53% longer than the average lifespan of people in 1977, 15% longer than the people in industrialized nations, and 101% longer than the people in developing nations. Do Western physicians live longer than the people in their own society? If so, how much longer? The data about the lifespan of Western physicians prior to the 19th century would be useful for comparison, but unfortunately not many are available. However, from a list of outstanding Western physicians in the 19th century, we see that their average lifespan was 70.93 years. The 10-year difference is even more significant when we take into consideration that many of the Chinese physicians listed lived before the 18th century, whereas virtually all the Western physicians lived after the 18th century. It is worth remembering that the lifespan of people has gradually increased over time. Thus, the Chinese physicians lived 21 years longer than the people in the world, on the average 10 years longer than those in industrialized nations, and 40 years longer than the people in developing nations. Since China is a developing nation, it means that Chinese physicians live twice as long as people in their society. A similar conclusion cannot be drawn from the list of Western physicians. When doctors are sick themselves or when they wish to live a long life, they will usually follow low prescriptions or a course of treatment based on their own medical knowledge. The fact that Chinese physicians of traditional medicine have managed to live a longer life than their Western counterparts demonstrates to what extent their medical knowledge is a reliable guide to longevity. Acupuncture. Although acupuncture and herbology are two different branches of Chinese medicine, with the former treating diseases by external methods and the latter by internal administration of herbs, they are frequently used simultaneously in clinical practice. Both are also based upon the theories of yin and yang, the five elements, the internal organs, and the meridians. In addition, both are guided by the four methods of diagnosis and the 8 classifications of disease.